Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
First, a word from our sponsor, Ethico.
Handling multiple compliance cases can often feel like navigating a complex labyrinth. Ethico introduces simplicity and intelligence into this chaos with our custom workflow automation. By automatically routing cases based on your unique criteria, we turn the maze into a clear path forward. Envision a compliance process that's not just effective, but also intuitive and adaptable to your needs. It's time to redefine efficiency in your workplace. Embark on this journey of transformation at ethico.com/CPN. Book a demo and explore the white paper by Tom Fox, 2023, The Year in Compliance, to discover a world of seamless compliance management.
The Daily Compliance News for February 26, 2024, the Guilty Edition. And we begin with that story as Ex-Vitol trader Javier Aguilar was found guilty of violating the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act in a court in Brooklyn, New York. He's found guilty on 3 counts, including a charge of FCPA and one of conspiring to launder money. The verdict came after an 8-week trial. The defense lawyer for Aguilar said, "We disagree with the jury's verdict and intend to appeal." This case had a salacious testimony of bribes paid literally up and down from Latin America to Mexico. It showed the corrupt nature of Ex-Vitol Trading. Aguilar tried to claim he was essentially just a small cog in a very big wheel, but he was at least a bagman, so he's the one that took the fall. Next up, in our continued guilty theme, a husband whose wife worked for BP as an executive and eavesdropped on his wife's work calls, pled guilty last week to insider trading. In a very interesting case, Tyler Loudon worked from home with his wife during the pandemic, and he pled guilty to insider trading after overhearing his wife discuss a planned acquisition. Loudon made $1.76 million in trading shares based on the details he heard. After learning of BP's deal to buy several U.S. convenience stores and restaurant properties from Travel Center of America, he purchased more than 46,000 shares of Travel Center stock without his wife's knowledge. Stock went up more than 70% after the agreement was announced. This really wasn't a pillow talk securities fraud where insider traders gleaned confidential information. This was just overhearing your wife on the phone and stepping forward. His wife was stunned by the revelation, reported it to her boss. According to the SEC, the company placed her on administrative leave and eventually fired her, despite having no evidence she leaked the information. So watch out for those bad spouses. Next up, from the Wall Street Journal, also the UAE has been removed from the global watch list for money laundering and terrorist financing. FATF said progress had been made by the UAE in strengthening its efforts against money laundering. And our final story comes to us from Fortune, who says that Ukraine owes it to itself to clean up the corruption in the country so that the massive rebuilding effort can start when and eventually when this war does end. So the commentary about Ukrainian corruption continues. Ukraine is going to have to look inwardly and very deeply if they want to be a part of NATO and the EU going forward. As I mentioned in the opening of this new podcast series, Compliance Tip of the Day, we are sponsored this month by Ethico. Are you struggling to close cases? Well, Ethico is here for you. Take advantage of their innovative approach to empathic issue intake, streamlined case management, and enterprise-wide disclosures. Learn more about how you can crowdsource risk management at scale at ethico.com/CPN. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.